Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for October 11th to October 17th of 2015. And on October 11th, we have the sun. You can see it denoted right here by this black circle with the dot on it. It's in Libra. It's also in the 57th hexagram. And on the outside of the wheel, we've got the chop mark for the 57, numbered from bottom to top. The 57 goes yin, yang, yang, yin, yang, yang. And then the 57th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here, this is the 57th gate of intuitive insight, the gentle, the extraordinary power of clarity, located in the splenic center in an individual energy path in the knowing circuit called the channel of the brainwave, a design of penetrating awareness that connects to the 20th gate of the now, contemplation, recognition, and awareness in the now transforms understanding into right action. And being part of the integration channels, the 57 forms the channel of power with the a design of an archetype, with the 34th gate of power, the power of the great, and the channel of the perfected form, a design of survival, with the 10th gate of behavior, the self treading. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we've got the following activated gates on October 11th. We've got the sun in the 57. The earth is in the 51. The north node is in the 46 with the south node in the 25. Mercury is newly direct and also in the 46. We have Venus in the 59th gate. Mars is in the 40th gate. We have Jupiter is in the 64th gate with Saturn in the 34th gate. Uranus is retrograde in the 51st gate. Neptune is retrograde in the 37th gate, and Pluto is in the 38th gate. And obviously, not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And the neutrino forecast is really just a weather report. No matter what the weather, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Rahu said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And as we begin the week, we have 3 channel definitions due to the transit field. With the south node in the 25 and the earth and Uranus in the 51, we've got the channel of initiation, a design and needing to be first. That's going to be with us until November 29th, where we might experience some sort of leap into the unknown. This is an individual channel that empowers through the courage to take a chance on something unknown and deal with the consequences afterwards. Obviously, following your strategy and authority will help you determine if this initiation is correct for you, or faced with multiple possibilities to experience a quantum shift, which ones, if any, are correct for you. In the mundane world, we're likely to see people become more competitive, pushing the boundaries, getting outside of their comfort zones, which will be shocking to themselves and others as they feel the wonder of their own unique spirit. If you experience people acting unpredictable during this time period, recognize this as a conditioning force that will eventually move on, but it could seem that folks are a little less in balance while experiencing this foreign energetic. With the defined ego center, people without a defined heart center may feel as if they have something to prove and make promises or commitments that are not correct for them. And the defined G center could influence folks without to obsess about where they're headed or where they might find love. This is also individual circuitry, so it brings with it the quality of melancholy, or those blue feelings that we have that are best used in some type of creative activity. And then we've got Mars in the 40 and Neptune in the 37, where we have the channel of community until October 13th. This definition brings the energy where people will wonder where they belong in the scheme of things and then try to live that out. It will be a time of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community. Fairness becomes important under the influence of the channel of community. Balance is an important factor in all aspects of life. People will explore how they fit into their community and on a mystical level, where they fit into the universe and what their true purpose is. And we talked about the defined ego center could influence people to have something to prove or feel like they need to improve something or make promises and commitments that are not correct for them. The defined solar plexus, for those who do not have an emotional definition, this can bring that unfamiliar wave of emotion and perhaps lead to acting confrontational. And then we've got the sun in the 57 with Saturn in the 34. So this brings us the channel of power, design of an archetype, which will be with us until October 14th. This channel brings an attunement to the body to have an acute early warning system to anything in the immediate environment. This increases folks' intuitive awareness through the power of sacral response. This may affect folks to feel more on guard, alert to any dangers in the moment. This is an animal instinct to engage in battle or jump out of the way with a split-second response from attunement to sound and vibration. People will be more in tune to what's being said from the tone of voice of the speaker rather than the words spoken. Sometimes this is experienced as a coolness by others, but this individual channel of survival represents the archetype of what it is to be human. The defined splenic center brings with it intuition and well-being. Ra warned that non-splenic people may let go of something that is good for them during a transit that defines the splenic center. And the sacral definition could also affect non-generator types and feeling busy and having the endurance to work. Obviously, don't get used to it. They may also think that they know when enough is enough, which could lead to the premature or abrupt end to something that really needs more time. We're going to be looking at the sun's Raving line values daily because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said in Living with the Program, The Lines of the Day, when talking about these daily shifts of line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. If your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always just notice how the program is affecting others in your environment. So October 11th begins with the sun in the third line, the martyr line of the 57. The sun in the 57.3 is acuteness, exalted, perfected intelligence, where clarity eliminates doubt and ensures manifestation, the possibility of perfected intuition. There's no polarity, detrimented, no planet in detriment. Third line days, we're talking about the martyr, trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work is the themes that we see with the third line. But later on the 11th, the sun then moves up into the fourth line, into the opportunist line of the 57th hexagram at 10:03 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 57.4 is the director, exalted, the mastery of relationships that through clarity can maximize productivity, while the sensitivity to interrelationships will ensure harmony. The possible intuitive clarity to master relationships. Detrimental, a tendency given this position to be dictatorial rather than directional, with the gift of clarity to master relationships, the possibility of being intuitively dictatorial. Fourth line days, we've moved out of the lower trigram, first, second, third line, to the upper trigram, fourth, fifth, sixth line, with the fourth line energies and influences of friendship and companionship, networking, those types of themes. And fourth line days are great for social interaction. On the 12th, the sun then moves into the fifth line of the 57th hexagram, into the line of the heretic at 8:47 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 57.5 is described as progression, exalted the natural ability to establish new forms while maintaining the powers of reevaluation and reexamination. This provides the clarity to examine data and assess the process. The positive intuitive gift for evaluation detrimented the tendency to keep on keeping on, and that can end up as a misguided missile. When in action, the intuition may be overwhelmed and unable to assess and evaluate the process. And fifth line days, the heretic. To me, the most important thing to understand about the fifth line is projection. The projection moves from positive to negative. First, they could do it; they're the perfect person for it. And that being some type of an expectation. And then if the person doesn't meet the expectation, doesn't do it, doesn't want to do it, can't do it for whatever reason, that expectation is not met. That's when the projection shifts to negative. That's when the people are punished. That's when the heretic gets tied to the stake. So it's a day of suspicion, but also of universalization, where something can spread like a virus, whether it's a YouTube video or perhaps a Facebook post, something of that nature. There's also people say paranoia is associated with the fifth line day, which impacts the nature of relationships. But as I've said before, given the projection field, if you're being projected on and not meeting the expectation, then they truly can be out to punish you. So not necessarily being paranoid in that case. Seduction also being a theme of a fifth line day. On the 13th, the sun then moves up into the sixth line. So up in the role model line of the 57th hexagram at 7:31 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 57.6 is utilization exalted, the acceptance of clarity as a double-edged sword, where there are situations where understanding cannot lead to rectification, where there is no answer, only the possibility of the intuition can make the best out of a difficult situation. Detrimented where clarity points to a problem one is unable because of circumstances to solve, a tendency to anger and frustration that provokes an inevitably futile action. The possibility that when the intuition cannot solve a problem, the tendency to frustration and anger. It's a day with the sixth line where we're on the roof of the hexagram. I like to think of the roof of the hexagram like being on the roof of a building, where we tend to be looking beyond the building, not looking at the building, but what's in the neighborhood, what's down the road, what's on the horizon, things of that nature. And Ra talked about that there's a lack of focus on what's going on around you because folks are looking beyond their immediate environment during sixth line days. So like a third line, there can be certain dangers of not seeing a car coming, not seeing a bill coming, things of that nature. Rob mentioned, that try to keep your head out of the clouds so you don't have something bang into your shins or your kneecaps during that influence of the sixth line day. Also on the 13th, Mars moves out of the 40th gate in hexagram. It joins Jupiter in the 64. So temporarily, we no longer have this definition. And so Mars is in the gate of confusion before completion. Transition, like birth, requires determined strength for the passage through. Mars is detrimented in the first line of the 64, which is conditions, detrimented, the powerful temptation when having transition in sight to hasty action, an urge to act when you think you have made sense of the confusion. And Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. Mars represents the warrior archetype in mythology, and by following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality Mars from immaturity to wisdom. And on the 14th, the Sun then moves out of the 57 hexagram and into the 32, also on the splenic center, but meaning that this channel definition is no longer happening. When the Sun moves into the 32, we also have the Earth leaving the 51, but it's leaving Uranus behind, and it moves into the 42 out of the sacral center here. So we have the Earth in the gate of growth, increase the expansion of resources, which maximizes the development of full potential. And this shift happens at 6:14 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, with the Sun in the 32nd gate of continuation, duration. The only thing that endures is change. And the Sun is exalted in the first line of the 32, which is conservation, exalted, the life-sustaining respect and attention for all aspects of the process, the potential to develop the instinct through detailed attention to the process. And when the Sun is in a new hexagram and the first, second, third lines are now in the lower trigram, so these are days when people are more looking inward, more absorbed in their own process, with the theme of the investigator line, the first line of the 32, this brings a fear or an anxiety that needs to be investigated. So it's a day to study, not to act. It's a good day to look into things, not to jump. It's a good day to deal with things you don't understand, can't make sense of, or simply don't know under that first line energetic. And then on the 15th, the Sun then moves out of the investigative line into the hermit line of the 32. And this shift happens at 4:56 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The Sun in the 32-2 is described as restraint, exalted, the control of power for the benefit and enhancement of harmony, the potential transformation that may be beneficial to others, detrimental, a tendency in frustration, particularly in from a position of strength, to social withdrawal rather than persistent control. The frustration with controls or being controlled. And then second line days, the hermit line, everybody's waiting for something. They're waiting to be called, particularly called because of their natural talent. So people are stuck in their own trip. It's not a great day to have a large social event because no one really wants to come. They'd rather stay home under that influence of the hermit line. Also on the 15th, Mercury moves out of the 46, leaving the north node there, and it moves into the 18. And find one that's going to stick. So we've got Mercury in the 18th gate of, and also, sorry, we have Venus moving. Venus moves out of the 59, and it moves into the 40. Which brings back this channel definition. All right, let's talk about Mercury first. In mythology, Mercury was the messenger of the gods. So this is about communication or expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music. According to Ra. So what do you need to communicate in life? Well, we communicate the message of our design Mercury through the medium of our personality Mercury. And what might be communicated with Mercury in the 18th gate? Well, maybe that authority needs to be questioned. This is the gate of correction, work on what's been spoiled, the vigilance and determination to uphold and defend basic human rights. Mercury in the first line of the 18 is in the light of conservatism, the adherence to traditional patterns despite or in spite of changing circumstances, exalted gradual modification to avoid eventual upheaval, the potential to correct through gradual modification. Detrimented the patriarch, whose rigidity guarantees deterioration, the potential to refuse to correct. And then we've also got Venus in the 40th gate, moving from the 59 to the 40th gate. Venus in human design is very powerful and deeply misunderstood, according to Ra. It brings morality or values, natural law in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us. And what disturbs you on a moral level? Well, your design and personality Venuses tell us about the moral dilemma that you're going to work with in your life. And that if you don't act with moral clarity, Venus can be unkind in its retribution. And Venus in the 40th gate of aloneness, deliverance, the point of transition between struggle and liberation. And in the first line of the 40, Venus is in the line of recuperation, exalted, the ability to relax and enjoy the fruits of one's behavior, the ego strength to enjoy being alone, detrimented, the ego uncomfortable with being alone too long. And with Venus in the 40th gate and Neptune in the 37th gate, we've got the channel of community until October 21st. This definition brings the energy where people will wonder where they belong into the scheme of things and try to live that out. This will be a time of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community, where fairness becomes more important under the influence of the channel of community. Balance is important in all aspects of life, and people will explore how they fit into their community and on a mystical level, where they fit into the universe and what their true purpose is. We have the defined ego center influencing people without to want to improve or prove themselves, making promises or perhaps commitments that are not correct for them. The defined solar plexus, again, can bring that unfamiliar wave of emotions to people without a defined solar plex, or which perhaps could even lead to feelings of acting confrontational. On the 16th, the sun then moves into the third line. So it leaves the hermit line, moves into the martyr line of the 32nd hexagram at 3:38 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 32-3 is in the gate of lack of continuity, exalted indecision, and persistent reevaluation that only because of its basic intelligence manages to endure indecision in times of transformation. Detrimented over-reliance in traditionally legitimized standards that in times of change can be totally out of step and suffer unexpected humiliation. A lack of instinct in times of transformation. And third line days, like the line of the martyr, so we've got trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. Things bump into us under that third line energy, so be careful on the roads, be careful swinging doors, swinging elbows. It's a day where we might have bonds made or we might have bonds broken or both in the same day. Third line days, again, trial and error process. It's a good material day, a good day to do business and work on the material plane, but you've got to be careful because things can go wrong. But hopefully if they do, they lead to discovery. On the 17th, the sun then moves into the fourth line of the 32nd hexagram. So moving back into the line of the opportunist in this case in the 37th hexagram, at 2:19 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 32.4 is described as right is might, exalted even in times of change. Certain underlying principles endure. The instinct to maintain one's principles in times of change, detrimented inner strength and endurance as long as it is not threatened from the outside. The instinct to maintain one's principles as long as one's security is not threatened. And again, we're moving out of the lower trigram to the upper trigram. So the shift from an inward perspective to more looking outward with the themes of friendship, companionship, networking. Fourth line energy is great for social interactions. So no matter what energies are conditioning you during the week, just remember that this is about being an experience. It is about being a passenger riding in a vehicle driven by the magnetic monopole. So enjoy the scenery. Let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing, no matter what dramas beckon to distract us. So we're all giving the performance of a lifetime on this world stage. Just take some time to observe your play, observe your movie, as well as act your part by remembering you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be for October 18th, 2015. Should be available on the 17th. When we'll continue to look at the influences of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook, blog, or YouTube, and I want to encourage you to share this information as text or videos as widely as you choose. And I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or you wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available, and emailing me at New World Birth. I'll let you know how to make a donation or get a reading. These readings tend to run 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours. And are very detailed as far as using human design to describe who you are and what's the character in your movie or play. And then I use astrology transits to talk about what are the scenes that are coming up in your play or movie. And then as far as what your lines are going to be in those scenes, that goes back to human design, strategy, and authority. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. All my best to everybody. Look forward to connecting with you in the future.